Welcome to the third discussion of the School Improvement Council. This discussion will lead to the creation of your school's achievement goals. My name is Sue Reynolds, and I am president of the American Student Achievement Institute. So during today's video, we'll do two things. One is to review. We will review the organizational structure for school improvement. We will also review the improvement process, and we'll give you a chance to look at your vision statement that was a result of your discussion last month. And then we'll move to today's tasks. Today we'll be looking at your achievement goals. We'll begin with an introduction to goals. Then we'll look at the council discussion prompt, and finally we'll talk about the next steps. And again, this video will be very informal. We'll put up a slide and just kind of talk about the content. So let's begin with the review. So in your organizational structure for school improvement, there are three different groups. The first one is the steering team. The steering team are improvement process managers, or they're the worker bees that are collecting data, holding discussions, and then creating drafts of different documents for the council to look at. The members of the steering team include 6 different folks: 2 teachers, counselor, principal, parent, and someone representing economic development. So that's one of the 3 organizational structures, the steering team. Another structure is the student body. The members of this group include the entire student body, and their job is to discuss school improvement topics and provide input. And their topics actually mirror the topics that the council are discussing. So the third structure is the School Improvement Council, the group that you are serving on. And your group are the decision makers. Your council consists of school and community stakeholder groups, and it's your job to discuss school improvement and also to reach consensus. So here's the process that you're using to create a strategic and high-leverage school improvement plan. We began by setting up that organizational structure in September and by collecting data, and some of that data you'll be looking at today. Then in October, we convened the School Improvement Council, the group that you're sitting on, and we did an introduction with the council to make sure that the council knew both the process and the organizational structure and a rationale for why school improvement was important. Then we looked last month at creating the vision. Remember, the vision is a very lofty, pie-in-the-sky, not based in reality view of what everything would look like if all of your dreams came true. So again, visions are very lofty, pie-in-the-sky. Your vision included your dream adult practices, your dream student practices, and your dream student achievement data. Then this month, we're coming back to reality. And we're saying, okay, if our current data, achievement data, is here, and our dream data or our vision data was way out there, where should our goals be? And of course, then your goals will fall somewhere between your current data and your dream data. We're going to have 2 different types of goals. We'll have broad priority areas for improvement, and then we'll have specific SMART goals. Once we know what those goals are, then next month we'll start to explain what's going to get in the way of reaching those goals. So we'll look at root causes, the things that have kept kids from reaching those goals up till now. Once we know what the root causes are, then we can start designing targeted interventions. So the interventions are designed to address the root causes, and once those root causes have been addressed, then the achievement can begin to go up. Once we know what the interventions are, then the final part of the process is to prepare to implement those interventions. So we will be working on professional development, on coming up with an annual calendar, on securing resources, all the things that we have to do to assure that those interventions are implemented successfully and with integrity. Okay, so that's the process. And then also, out of each step of that process, there will be a product. Out of each discussion that the council has, there will be a product. The product from last month's discussion was your vision statement, and we'll actually take a look at that in a minute. The product this month is going to be the goals statement. And then in future months, there will be a root causes statement and interventions, and then preparation. So what we'd like to do now is to open the vision statement and just read it. Just review it very quickly. So let's pause the screen now, and then on the discussion page, look in the top right-hand corner, and you'll find a link that says Vision Statement. Click on that, and then if you'll review the vision statement real quickly, that would be great, and then restart the video. Okay, so you now have reviewed your vision statement. You know what your lofty dream is for all kids. Now we're going to come back to reality and say, okay, if that's the dream, if the dream is that, say, 100% of our students are wildly successful, then what should be our goal? What can we realistically accomplish within the next year? So we're looking at goals. We'd like to begin with an introduction, and in this introduction we'll be discussing some of the terminology and also the framework for defining our goals. So let's look at the big picture. We've decided at ASA to align our terminology with that used by the Indiana Department of Education. So we'll be talking about broad priority areas for improvement, and then specific SMART goals that fall underneath those priority areas. The Department of Education is suggesting that you have 2, maybe 3 broad areas for improvement, and then several SMART goals underneath those broad areas. And this is really no different than what we've always done with ASA, just the terminology is different. We've called those things broad goals and specific goals. The Department of Ed is calling them priority areas and SMART goals. So same thing. Okay, so when the department is asking schools to define the priority areas for improvement, they would like schools to include these 4 things with the description of each priority area for improvement. So the first description of this broad area is, what's the focus of this broad goal? Is it on student proficiency or pass rate? Is it on student growth? Is it on graduation rate? Or is it on college and career ready? And on the next slide we'll define what each of those are. Then also for the broad goals, we'll say what subject that broad goal is related to. For the Department of Education, the subjects that they will have you identify are one of the 4 that are listed: Math, English, English 10 or Algebra 1. However, for ASA purposes, we're also going to list social studies, science, world languages, other subjects that we know some of our schools have goals around. So social studies, science, world languages, and others. Then the third part of the broad goal is the grade level that you have that goal for, and a subgroup. This is a subgroup that for an elementary or middle school, the department would like you to identify if this broad goal is a goal for the bottom 25% of the students or the top 75% of the students. So is it for your lower achieving students or for your higher achieving students? In high schools, the department would like you to identify, is this a goal that you have in terms of improvement from 8th grade to 10th grade, or improvement from 10th grade to 12th grade? So for each of your broad goals, you'll be describing the broad goal in these 4 ways. Now, I want to go back and define more specifically what those focus areas, those 4 focus areas are. So here are the 4 focus areas, and you can see that one of the focus areas is proficiency or pass rate, and that is basically the percentage of all students who pass I-STEP or ECA. On student growth, that is the percentage of students who make the expected gain on I-STEP or ECA. Graduation rate is the percentage of the graduation cohort who graduate in 4 years. And then for career ready, it's the percentage of graduates who have done one of 4 things. They have either passed an AP test, they've passed an IB exam, International Baccalaureate exam, they've earned 3 college credits, or they've passed an industry certification exam. So college and career ready means that it's the percentage of graduates who have shown that they are college or career ready by doing one of those 4 things, one or more of those 4 things. Okay, so those are the focus definitions. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Here's an elementary example. In this example, the PAI, or the priority area for improvement, is to work on student proficiency or pass rate on I-STEP math for our 6th graders who are in the bottom 25%. So you can see as we define those 4 areas, it kind of flows into a broad goal statement. We're working on the pass rate on I-STEP math for 6th graders in the bottom 25%. Here's an example for high school. We're working on the pass rate on Algebra 1 ECA for the class of 2017 who improve between grades 8 and 10. So again, this time for grade level, instead of looking at like a 9th grade or 10th grade, we're looking at a specific class. So we can follow that class from 8th grade to 10th grade and look at the improvement in the percentage of students who are passing the Algebra 1 ECA. So that's a high school example. Okay, so those are the broad areas of concern. Those are the broad priority areas for improvement. Now let's look at SMART goals. So SMART goals, again, are part of DOE's terminology. In the old ASA terminology, they would be specific goals underneath the broad goal, but now they're SMART goals underneath the priority area for improvement. We're using DOE terminology. Okay, so when we look at SMART goals, the term SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, results-oriented, and timely. So to make your goals into SMART goals, we're going to be specific by focusing on a specific student group or a specific benchmark. We're going to make them measurable by looking at current data, by looking at vision data, and setting target data somewhere in between the two. We'll make them attainable by making sure that that the goal is something that's within your ability to impact. We'll make them realistic, but in ASA's work we make them challenging but realistic. So we want this goal to be realistic with a lot of hard work, but we do want it to be realistic. And then we also want the goals to be timely, and in ASA's work that means being reachable within 1 year. So the time frame on your SMART goals is going to be 1 year. Okay, here's some examples. So here are 2 elementary examples. The first one is the priority area was proficiency or pass rate in math for the kids in the bottom 25%. So the SMART goals, we work to get more specific. So you can see in the first one here, the first SMART goal underneath this priority area for improvement is to increase the percentage of 6th graders in the bottom 25%. So now we're not talking about all students, but we've narrowed down a little bit, so we're talking about 6th graders only here in this goal, SMART goal. And what do we want them to do? We want them to pass I-STEP math. Next one is to increase the percentage of all 6th graders who master algebra and functions, a standard. Percentage of 6th graders in the bottom 25% who earn a 90% on a weekly math test that's given in this school. Or to increase the percentage of, now I'm going to drill down the student group even further, 6th grade free and reduced lunch students in the bottom 25% who earn 90 on a weekly math test. I may want to do this type of drill down if in the data I've noticed an achievement gap. So that I want to kind of focus specifically on free and reduced lunch kids to see if I can increase the percentage who earn that 90%. Okay, here's another example. This time the PAI is a student growth PAI. So I'm looking at student growth in math, and again I'm looking at the students in the bottom 25%. Okay, so one way to express that might be the percentage of 6th graders. Year after year I'm looking at just the 6th grade to see the percentage that are showing high growth on I-STEP. Or another way to express that is the percentage of the class of 2017 or 2020 in the bottom 25% who show high growth on I-STEP. Then we can follow the same students year after year. So in this bottom PAI, we're showing two different ways to express the student group. One is as a grade level, so we'd be comparing 6th grade to 6th grade to 6th grade year after year. And the second way is as a class, so we would just look at one group of students and follow them from 6th grade to 7th grade to 8th grade. We follow them over time. Okay, so there are some elementary examples. Here's some high school examples. First one is also proficiency in Algebra 1. So we're looking at the percentage of the class of 2000 and X who master quadratic equations, or the percentage of the class of 2000 and X who earn a 90 on a weekly math test, or the class of 2000 and X free and reduced lunch students who earn a 90% on a weekly math test. So just different ways to drill down in a high school. On the second PAI, the College and Career Ready PAI, we may be looking at, for SMART goals, the percentage of graduates who pass an AP Calc test, or the percentage of free and reduced lunch graduates who pass an AP Calc test. So again, the SMART goals are getting specific, they're measurable, they're targeted, and they fall under those broad priority areas. Okay. So let's look at the discussion that you're about to have. So in this discussion, we will ask you as a council member to do two things. The first one is to review a set of student achievement data tables, and then to answer these discussion prompts. I am pleased that, and then you'll list data that please you. I am disturbed that, and then you'll list data that disturb you. And then the third prompt, an achievement gap may exist between, and then you'll list different student groups and data that would lead you to believe that there may be an achievement gap between those groups. Okay, so to open the achievement data report, we won't do this now, we'll do it a little later, but to get to that report, you'd go to the council discussion page and then click on the achievement data report link, and that will open a report that looks like this. So you'll see data in rows and columns. The first thing I want to point out is that we will give you the data source. In this case, the data source is Indiana Department of Ed website. The data source may also be school records. There could be several different data sources, but we want you as a council member to know where that data is coming from. Then on this table, there's a student group, there's a column of benchmarks, and then there's the percent that are meeting that benchmark with data each year. So you can see in that first row we're looking at the percentage of all students who pass I-STEP math. The data in 2012 was 81%. It increased to 84% by 2013 and then 89%. So we saw kind of a nice improvement in the percentage of all students passing the I-STEP math test. So what we'd like you to do for practice is to pause the video on this page, on this slide, and then just look through that data on the right and see for you personally, is there data there that please you? So let's do that, and if you'll pause now, and we'll come back in just a second. Okay, so you've identified data for this school that please you as a practice. So that would enable you to answer the first discussion prompt. I am pleased that 89% of students are passing I-STEP math. So that's something that pleases you. Now, one thing I'd like to point out, though, is that while that may be pleasing to you, it may be disturbing to someone else. It just depends on how you look at it. You may be looking at that 89% and thinking, you know, that's above state average, and I'm just really pleased about that. So that's pleasing to you. Someone else may be thinking, you know, our vision data was that 100% of the kids would be passing. 100% of the kids are successful. So 89 is good, but it's not good enough. So that 89 disturbs me because I want it to be 100. So it kind of depends on where you're coming from, on what pleases you and what disturbs you. And I think it will be really interesting to not only put your ideas into the discussion prompts, but to read what other council members are saying. I think that will be really important in this discussion. Okay, on this screen, this is a list of all of the data charts that are that you'll be seeing, or that you may be seeing. There's some that won't be available to elementaries and some that won't be available to high schools, but you'll be seeing some subset of these reports. So just so you know what you're going to be seeing, let's just pause very quickly the screen here, just kind of take a look at these reports so you'll know what's coming up. Okay, so you've looked at all of the reports. There is one report that I want to talk about, and that is the mastery grades. Mastery grades is something that ASA does to help schools look at the report card grade integrity. What it is we've asked each school to identify a letter grade that if we saw it on a student's report card, we could reasonably expect that that student was going to pass I-STEP. So each school has identified a letter grade. I think probably about half of our SI2 schools have identified a B, maybe the other half have identified a C. I know we've had one school that has said it's an A, that anything less than an A on the report card would indicate that a student was not likely to pass I-STEP. So the reason we're doing this is if the mastery grade data is, say, like 80% of the students have earned that mastery grade, but only 40% of the kids are passing I-STEP, then we know that something's wrong. We may have grade inflation. Maybe we're not really teaching the standards that are the standards that appear on the assessment. Something's askew. So pretty much we want the percentage of students earning the mastery grade on the report card to kind of mirror the percentage of students that are passing I-STEP. And when those two things are off, then we start to ask questions. So that's what mastery grades are. Here's how the mastery grade chart will appear. You'll see what the school has defined as the mastery grade at the top of the column, and then the percentage of students that have earned that mastery grade. So you can see that for this school, and this is actually a real SI2 school, you can see that 78% of the students earned the mastery grade of a C or higher. And so we'd expect to see about 78% of the students also passing the 6th grade English I-STEP test. So just something to kind of look at to help you understand the report card grades. Okay, also, while we're looking at this data table, I'd also like to introduce the way that we provide the disaggregated data. So you can see the first row of data there is data for all students. But we also give a drill down for female versus male data, different ethnic group data, free and reduced lunch versus paid lunch data, non-limited English versus limited English data, and then special ed versus general ed data. You can see that on this data table there are some cells that have a dash in them. That's because there were fewer than 10 students in that student group, and for confidentiality purposes we hide the data. So that's why you're seeing dashes. It may be that the school has Hispanic students enrolled, but it's a number that's less than 10. Okay, so that's how we do the disaggregation. And then again, as practice, let's look at that data, especially the disaggregated data, and just kind of determine for you personally, do any of the data that you see there disturb you? So please pause and take a look at that data, and when you're ready to go, just hit the play button again. Okay, so you've identified some data that you found disturbing, possibly, and I'm wondering if you came up with some of these areas. And this, again, this is a real school's data. We're looking at the percentage of students who earned the mastery grade of a C on the report card in English. And we're seeing 90% of the girls did, while only 68% of the boys did. So that, may be of concern to you. It's it's beyond the 20-point gap there. So I always get the question, how big of a gap does it have to be before it's concerning? And that's really, that's up to you. For some people, any gap is of concern. For other people, it's a 10-point gap or a 20-point gap. So you have to kind of just question, what are you comfortable with? I can tell you it's not often that we see a 20-point gap in data. So this one, for me personally, it would raise some questions. A light bulb would go off on this one. Another gap that you might have found on this set of data is the gap between the paid lunch and the free and reduced lunch students. Again, a pretty healthy gap in this area. So, if we believe that all kids can learn at a high level, then we want to start digging in to figure out, well, why aren't the free and reduced lunch kids getting a C or higher on the report card in English? What's getting in their way, and what can we do to help in that situation? So just a reminder that one of the things then that we can do with this data is to use that data to answer the discussion prompts. So I am disturbed that 68% of 6th graders are earning the mastery grade of C in English. We can also use that data to start to identify an achievement gap. So an achievement gap may exist between boys and their peers, in this case girls. And I've got two different data points, the one that we're looking at right now, but also we'll find the same type of mastery grade gap in math. I'd also want to look further into some assessment data to see if the assessment data, in addition to report card data, is also showing this gender gap. Okay, so finally, one more word about achievement gaps. Again, it's our foundational belief that all students can learn at a rigorous level. So when we see those gaps, it disturbs us. It makes us think that there's something happening in the environment, in the community, in the home, in the school, that's causing these gaps to occur. And so next month, after you have identified those gaps, then we'll bring disaggregated root cause data to the table to help you discover why that targeted student group is experiencing a gap. Once we know the why, then we'll design interventions to address the why, to address that root cause. So, but again, the foundational belief is that all students can learn at a rigorous level. So when we see gaps, that's disturbing. Okay, so as we go into the discussion, let's remember these things. Read the discussion prompts carefully, add thoughtful comments, be creative, constructive, no personal attacks, focus on what's best for kids, and if there's any other discussion norms at your school, remember those two as you go into the discussion. Also, please note that the author's name, your name, will appear on all of your comments. The steering team will monitor the discussions, and if there are any inappropriate comments, those will be removed. Okay, so what we'd like to do are two things now. One is to go to the top of the discussion page, click on the Achievement Data report, open up that report, look through it. As you're looking through it, look for those things that please you, disturb you, or concern you, and areas where there may be achievement gaps. Then come back to this page, the discussion page, and answer the 3 questions that will appear there. So let's pause the screen now while you do that, and then afterwards please come back to the video. Okay, you've identified things that in the data that disturb, please you, and you've also identified possibly achievement gaps. Now, the next steps are that based on your input, the council consensus point person, with the help of the steering team, those people are going to draft your school improvement achievement goals. And they will present those goals to you for your consideration. So when you get those goals, they'll be in the form of 1, 2, maybe 3 priority areas for improvement, and then under each priority area of improvement there will be SMART goals listed. So they'll be asking for your consensus. Remember, in reaching consensus, you don't have to love the goals, but you do have to be able to live with them and support them publicly. So if you're seeing a priority area or a SMART goal that you cannot live with and support publicly, then you need to let the steering team know, and they'll work with you to edit until the entire council can agree with the goals for the school. Okay, so that's what's coming up next. And again, if you have any questions, please contact the council discussion point person on your local school improvement steering team, and they'll be more than happy to help you. I'm really looking forward to reading the discussions about your goals this month, and again, this will be a huge part of your school improvement plan. Thank you for watching the video. Thank you for taking the time to look at the data and respond to the discussion prompts. We know that you're all volunteers doing this, and we just really appreciate your time on behalf of your students. Thank you so much.